His pawn to e4, releasing his bishop and his queen primarily, and notice that they both move on light squares, right? So if black is just playing carelessly, we can have a game end very quickly like this. First, the bishop comes out shooting at this weak square. Now the queen comes out, and if black is not careful, he just jumps out here, tries to chase the queen away, but unfortunately she's not going backwards, she's going forward. Queen takes pawn, checkmate, right? The king can't take the queen because the bishop is providing backup, and the king has nowhere to run because of the queen guarding all those squares. So this is the 4-move checkmate. You can similarly reach that same position by switching your move order. You can bring out your queen first, and then you hop out with your bishop, and once again, if black does not notice and defend himself, he can get checkmated very, very quickly. And I told you already, thousands and millions of games every year are finished just like this, with this 4-move checkmate. Now, I know this seems really basic, but from this very short and quick game, we can actually learn several important points of chess strategy. And the first thing we learn is about keeping your eyes open, keeping your eyes peeled, and finding those weaknesses, right? So at the start of the game, white didn't just kind of develop his pieces without a plan. He looked around and said, aha, there is a weak point, and every single move that white made from move 1 on was devoted to targeting that weak point, turning the weak point into a target for his pieces. And the second thing we learn is how to coordinate pieces together. Notice that white brings out this bishop to aim at the f7 pawn, and then he brings out the queen. And this is called coordinating your pieces, when your pieces are both working together towards a goal. And in chess, even if both sides have all of their pieces developed and fighting, the side that has the better piece coordination will usually be the winning side. So there are different types of piece coordination, but here's one of them. Choosing a target square and then aiming your whole army, in this case 2 pieces, but you can imagine aiming 3 or 4 pieces at that square, right? Now, the third thing we learn is actually defense, right? So black didn't have to sit here helplessly while white was coming out here to attack the square of doom. In this position, on move 2, black can already kind of smell that something is coming if you're alert, and you can right here stop Scholar's Mate for good, shut it down. How would black do that? How could you prevent Scholar's Mate before it even begins to brew? Very good. You can imagine that the queen is going to come out to either this h5 square to aim at f7 or this f3 square to aim at f7. And both of those moves can be stopped by one nice, natural developing move, and that is the move knight f6. The queen can no longer come out to h5 because we will simply take her. So we stopped that. And if the queen comes out to f3, well, that no longer makes much sense because the knight is blocking the path, right? So if they try to Scholar's Mate you by playing e4, e5, and then bishop c4, you can just stop it before it even starts with the move knight f6. However, what if they go the other way, e4, e5, and queen to h5? Well, this is actually going to demonstrate to us why, while Scholar's Mate is a deadly and sometimes effective opening attack, it's not something you want to do yourself once you get to a certain level. And the reason is this. There's an opening principle that I didn't actually mention in my previous video on the phases of the game, but there's an opening principle that says don't bring your queen out too early. If you ever saw the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer, right, with Josh Waitzkin as a little kid, you remember he was always arguing with his coach, Pandolfini. Pandolfini kept telling him, stop bringing your queen out too early, and he kept doing it and kind of getting away with it. But in general, you don't want to bring your queen out too early because she's your most valuable piece, and she's going to get targeted by the other pieces, right? You're not willing to trade your queen for pretty much anything except another queen, unless you're getting a whole bunch of pieces for her. So you can't just target her right away, because then she comes over here and takes your pawn, and you're down a pawn for nothing. So first, you're going to have to defend your e5 pawn, And what do you think the best way is to do that? Exactly. Knight to c6, bringing out a piece and defending the pawn at the same time. Now, here comes Scholar's Mate. Bishop to c4. If you are not careful, you're about to lose, right? And black has several ways to defend. So why don't you pause for a second and think, how would you try to get out of this checkmate, right? If you don't do anything, you're a goner. How do you defend? Now, you could defend by guarding the f7 square an extra time, right? White has 2 attackers. You have 1 defender. If you add a second defender, then you'll be safe. So a move like queen e7 or queen f6 would defend this f7 point. But those aren't the most principled of moves, because if you play queen e7, you're kind of matching White's sort of breaking of principles, bringing their own queen out too early by bringing your queen out too early too. And notice that you're blocking in your bishop and making it harder to develop your army. Likewise, if you play queen f6, you're once again bringing your own queen out too early. She can be quickly targeted by pieces, and you're blocking your knight from its best and most natural square, knight f6. So both of those moves will stop Scholar's Mate, but they're kind of subpar. The best move is to realize that White is breaking a principle by bringing their queen out too early, and you want to go on the offensive and start chasing that queen around and punishing her from coming out where your pieces can attack her. You play g6. And now they can't checkmate you because queens can't jump, and you're attacking the queen. So the best move for White is probably just to slink back to d1 and admit that the queen shouldn't have come out too early. But let's say that White continues trying to checkmate you. Remember, this f3 square is another route that the queen can take to get here. Well, now you once again stop the Scholar's Mate by naturally developing your pieces. Knight to f6. You can't take the knight because the queen is guarding it. And now White is just sitting here. They've moved the queen twice, and you're about to get attacked by black's knight. You could once again swing over here to b3 and target f7 again, right? Just never giving up on your plan. But this is going to end in tears for White. And let's see if you can think of what black should do here. Pause your video and give it a good think. All right, the best move for black is to realize that checkmate is actually no longer being threatened, because with the bishop coming here to f7, the king will have the e7 square. So black says, okay, fine, you can take me, and just jumps here to d4 and attacks the queen, right? And you're continuing to punish the queen for coming out too early. Now, if black gets greedy and takes here on f7, check, for a moment, White's dream has come true, but the black king simply moves forward, and suddenly White is in a double attack. The bishop is under attack, the queen is under attack. If you move the queen just anywhere, the king takes the bishop, and White is down a bishop for nothing. For no compensation, really. So instead, White has to play the move queen to c4, finding a safe place for the queen that maintains this defense of the bishop, and that's the only square that does it. And black here plays another move that at first looks a little bit bizarre, but it makes perfect sense when you think about it. Black plays b5, attacking the queen again and taking away every single square the queen has to guard this bishop, right? Now the queen has to move off of this diagonal, and the king takes the bishop for free. And this is already winning for black, but let's just look at 1 or 2 more moves to see what could happen. Let's say that White notices his pawn here is under attack, and he plays the natural looking move, pawn to d3, to defend his pawn and release his bishop. Now, because this queen came out too early, black can win the queen with a 2-move tactic. So see if you can find it. Very good. The sequence bishop b4 check, combining this pin, this absolute pin of the queen to the king, with a fabulous knight fork. This is a family fork, hitting the king, check, the queen, hello, and the rook in the corner. When the king moves, you pick up a queen. Black is up a whole queen for nothing, and it's because White sort of stubbornly insisted on going after this square of doom, this weakest square, no matter what, with their queen coming out too early. And it turns out that if black is fully prepared for this and plays actively, that white actually gets in trouble. If you just defend your pawn, and then when the bishop comes out, you chase the queen around, get out of here, she comes back here, you keep developing your army, and if the queen insists on moving over and over again, finally this move is going to put white in a lot of trouble. And black will take over the initiative and possibly win some material. So I hope that lesson was useful for you, and never fall victim to the 4-move checkmate again. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you around on chess.com.